When my dad stood up at our family reunion and said, "I'm proud of everyone except her," I thought my life was over, thinking I was the biggest disappointment in the Castellano family. But when my sister followed me and said, "There's something you don't know about Dad," everything changed. What I discovered next led me to a hospital room where my supposedly dead grandfather had been hiding for 20 years, waiting to tell me a secret that would connect our broken family to relatives across the world. What was the family secret so big that Dad would rather hurt me than risk me finding out? I'm standing in the middle of Uncle Marco's backyard, clutching a paper plate of potato salad that's already starting to get warm in the summer heat. The annual Castellano family reunion is buzzing around me like a happy storm. Kids are screaming with joy as they cannonball into the pool, sending water splashing across the concrete. My cousins are arguing over volleyball rules, while Aunt Rosa tries to convince anyone who'll listen to try her new quinoa recipe. "It's got cranberries," she calls out, waving a wooden spoon. "You'll love it." Nobody's taking her up on the offer. We're Italian. Nephew Dante have a complete meltdown about his melted ice cream when Dad rises from his lawn chair like some kind of family judge, ready to deliver a verdict. He's more of a grunt and nod kind of communicator, the type of man who fixes problems with his hands and expresses love through actions rather than words. But today, something's different. He's wearing that serious expression I remember from childhood, the one that used to make me hide behind Mom's legs when I was little. "Can I have everyone's attention?" Dad's voice cuts through the chatter like a knife through butter. The whole backyard goes quiet. Even Dante stops mid-tantrum, his sticky fingers frozen halfway to his mouth. "I want to say something about my children," Dad continues, his eyes scanning the crowd of cousins, aunts, uncles, and assorted family friends who've become honorary relatives over the years. My heart does this weird flutter thing because Dad doesn't do public speeches ever. The most emotional I've ever seen him get was when he cried during my high school graduation, and even then he tried to hide it by pretending he had something in his eye. "I'm proud of everyone here today," he says, his voice carrying across the yard. "Really proud." I shift the potato salad to my other hand and smile, feeling that warm glow you get when your parent is about to say something nice about you in front of the whole family. How I've been sending money home every month to help with expenses. How I volunteer at the free clinic on weekends even though I'm exhausted from my regular nursing shifts. Marco Jr. Dad continues, "That takes real dedication, son." My brother grins and raises his beer bottle. In acknowledgement, "Thanks, Pop." "And Lucia, sweetheart." Dad's voice gets softer as he looks at my sister, who's trying to wipe ice cream off Dante's face with a cartoon elephant dish towel. "You're raising 3 beautiful kids while finishing nursing school. I don't know how you do it, but I'm amazed by you every single day." The whole family is smiling now. That collective warm feeling you get when someone's being appreciated. I'm getting ready to hear whatever nice things Dad's going to say about me. About my job at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. About how I chose pediatric nursing because I want to help sick kids. About how proud he is that his youngest daughter followed her heart into a caring profession. And then there's my Sophia. Dad's voice changes, gets colder. The warmth drains out of it like water from a broken bucket. My stomach drops. "Well, I'm proud of everyone here today. Everyone, except her." The words hit me like a physical blow. Every conversation stops. The only sound is the pool filter humming and someone's phone buzzing. Potato salad splashes across my sandals. Chunks of mayonnaise-covered potatoes decorating my feet like some kind of cruel confetti. But I can't feel anything except the burning in my chest and the way everyone's staring at me like I'm some kind of zoo exhibit. 30 family members. Like I'm the family failure they've been too polite to mention until now. "Dad." My voice comes out smaller than I intended. Like I'm 5 years old again and asking why the sky is blue. He won't even look at me, just sits back down in his lawn chair and reaches for his iced tea like he didn't just destroy his youngest daughter in front of everyone we know. Like he didn't just announce to our entire family that I'm the disappointment, the one who doesn't measure up, the child he can't be proud of. The silence stretches on forever. I can hear my heart pounding in my ears, can feel the heat of everyone's stares on my skin. Aunt Rosa has stopped stirring her quinoa salad. The kids have stopped splashing in the pool. Even the volleyball game has come to a complete halt. That's when I run, not walk, not make polite excuses about needing to use the bathroom or check on something in my car. I run through the crowd of shocked faces. I left my beat-up Honda parked under the old oak tree. But as I'm fumbling with my keys, hands shaking so bad I can barely get them in the ignition, I hear footsteps on the gravel driveway behind me. "Sophia, wait." It's Lucia, still holding that dish towel with cartoon elephants on it. Her face is flushed, and she's breathing hard from running after me in flip-flops. There's something in her expression that I can't quite read, something that looks almost like relief. "Don't go," she says, reaching for my car door handle. Please don't go like this. Like what? I'm crying now, ugly tears that make my mascara run down my cheeks in black streaks. Like the family disappointment. Like the daughter who apparently brings shame to the Castellano name. But Lucia's shaking her head, and there's something in her eyes that makes me pause with my hand on the car keys. That's not why he said it. Sophia. We sit there in my beat-up Honda with the air conditioning that only works on Tuesdays, listening to the distant sounds of the reunion continuing without us. I can hear Uncle Marco's voice calling for everyone to come back and eat, as if food can somehow fix what just happened. Don't go, Lucia says again, her voice gentler now. Please, don't leave like this. Like what? I wipe my nose on my sleeve like I'm 5 years old again. Like the family disappointment. Like the daughter who apparently brings shame to everyone. My sister is quiet for a long moment, picking at the edge of that elephant dish towel. The one who smooths over Dad's rough edges and translates his grunts into actual human communication. She's the peacekeeper, the one who remembers everyone's birthdays and makes sure the family stays connected. But even she can't fix this. There's something you don't know, she says quietly, staring at her hands. Something about Dad. About why. He's been so ... different with you lately? Different. He's been treating me like I don't exist for 3 months. Ever since I told him about the job offer in Portland. That's not why he's upset. Something in her tone makes me turn to really look at her. Lucia's face has gone pale under her summer tan, and she's got that expression she used to get when we were kids and she knew something she wasn't supposed to know. Like the time she found out about Mom's surprise birthday party, or when she discovered that Dad had been laid off from the factory but was pretending to go to work every day. What are you talking about, Lou? She takes a deep breath. That sounds shaky. Remember when Dad had to go to the doctor for those tests back in April? The ones Mom said were just routine checkups? My stomach drops like I'm on a roller coaster. Don't tell me he's sick. Don't you dare tell me he's sick, and that's why he just humiliated me in front of 30 people. He's not sick. Lucia meets my eyes, and I can see she's been carrying this secret around like a heavy stone. But he found something out, about his health, about his family history, and Sophia ... it changes everything we thought we knew about our family. I don't understand. The genetic testing they did as part of his physical, it revealed something about Dad's father. Something that explains why Grandpa Joe was always so secretive about his past, why we never met any relatives on his side of the family. I feel like I'm in one of those dreams where everyone else knows the punchline to a joke, except you. Grandpa Joe died when I was in middle school, and I barely remember him. He was always quiet, kind of sad, and he never talked about his childhood or his parents. Dad said it was because Joe's family died when he was young that talking about the past made him too upset. What does any of this have to do with me? I ask. Lucia reaches over and takes my hand. Her fingers are cold, despite the summer heat, and they're trembling slightly. Dad isn't angry at you, Sophia. He's terrified of you. Because out of all of us kids, you're the one who looks exactly like Grandpa Joe did when he was young. And now Dad knows why that might be a problem. Before I can ask what she means, her phone buzzes with a text message. She glances at it, and her face goes even paler, which I didn't think was possible. We need to go back, she says, already reaching for the door handle. Mom just texted, something's happening with Dad. What kind of something? The kind where he's sitting alone at the picnic table looking like his world just fell apart, and he won't talk to anyone. Lucia's voice is urgent now. Sophia, I think telling everyone what he said about you, I think it broke something inside him. Like he finally said the thing he's been trying not to say for months, and now he doesn't know how to take it back. I stare at my sister, this woman who's always been my protector, my defender, my best friend. She's never lied to me, not once in our entire lives. But what she's telling me doesn't make sense. You're saying Dad humiliated me because he's scared of me? I'm saying Dad is dealing with some family secret that's eating him alive, and you. Walking away right now is going to destroy him. Lucia squeezes my hand tighter. I don't understand it all yet, but I know that man loves you more than his own life, and whatever made him say those words, it wasn't about you not being good enough. Through the windshield, I can see people starting to leave the reunion. Cars are pulling out of Uncle Marco's driveway, families loading up coolers and folding chairs and tired children. The party's over, broken apart by my father's inexplicable cruelty and my dramatic exit. I can't go back in there, I tell Lucia. I can't face everyone after what just happened. You don't have to face everyone, just face Dad. Why should I? Lucia is quiet for a moment, and when she speaks again, her voice is soft but determined. Because 3 months ago, a woman called our house looking for Dad. She said she was from some kind of ancestry research company, and she had questions about Grandpa Joe's family history. Dad hung up on her, but she called back the next day, and the day after that, so the last time she called, She said something that made Dad turn white as a sheet. She said she had information about Joe's other family, the one he left behind before he married Grandma Maria. The world tilts sideways. Grandpa Joe had another family, a wife and children he abandoned when Dad was just a baby. Children who've been looking for him their whole lives. Lucia's eyes fill with tears. Children who found Dad through genetic testing and want to meet their half-brother, want to meet us? I feel like I can't breathe. That's impossible. The woman's name is Alina Morales. She lives in Portland, Oregon. And when you told Dad you were taking that job at the children's hospital there, when you were so excited about the fresh start and the new opportunities? Lucia stops, shaking her head. He panicked. He thought maybe you knew somehow. Maybe. You were trying to find them? Find who? Your gradant, Sophia? The little girl that Grandpa Joe left behind 60 years ago? She's been looking for family her whole life, and somehow she found us. My phone buzzes with a text message from an unknown Portland number. With shaking hands, I open it and read, "Hello, Sophia. My name is Alina Morales. I believe we're family. I've been trying to reach your father, but I understand this is complicated. I work at Portland Children's Hospital. When you start your job next month, please find me. We have so much to talk about." I show the message to Lucia and she gasps. "How? Does she even have your phone number?" she whispers. But I'm already getting out of the car, because suddenly everything makes a terrible kind of sense. Dad's strange behavior. His anger about my move to Portland, the way he's been looking at me lately, like he's seeing a ghost. "Come on," I tell my sister. "We need to talk to Dad. Are you sure?" I look back at Uncle Marco's house, where my father is apparently sitting alone with the weight of a 60-year-old family secret, and I realize that running away isn't going to solve anything. If there's a woman in Portland who thinks she's my tante, if my grandfather had a whole other family that I never knew about, if Dad's been carrying this burden alone, yeah, I say, pocketing my phone, I'm sure, because I have a feeling this story is just getting started. We find Dad sitting alone at the picnic table where the desserts used to be, staring at his hands like they hold the answers to questions he's afraid to ask. The reunion has mostly moved inside Uncle Marco's house, giving him space to fall apart in private. The only sounds in the backyard are the pool filter humming and a neighbor's dog barking. Somewhere in the distance, Mom is hovering nearby, wringing her hands in that way she does when she's trying not to cry. She's cleaned up the dessert table, twice already, moving the same plate of cookies from one spot to another, like staying busy will somehow fix whatever's broken inside her husband. When she sees us coming across the yard, relief floods her face. "Thank God you came back," she whispers to me, pulling me into a hug that smells like her vanilla perfume and worry. He's been sitting there for 20 minutes, won't talk to anyone, won't even look at me. I want to point out that I don't care, that he's the one who destroyed our relationship in front of everyone, but the look on his face stops me. This isn't the stern, judgmental father who raised me. This isn't the man who taught me to ride a bike and helped me with algebra homework and scared away boys who weren't good enough for his little girl. This is a broken man who looks like he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. "Dad?" I sit down across from him, my anger warring with concern. Mom says something's wrong. He finally looks up at me and I'm shocked to see tears in his eyes. Vincent Castellano doesn't cry. He fixes things with his hands and solves problems with hard work and sweat, but he doesn't cry. Not when his own father died. Not when he got laid off from the factory. Not even when he had to put our dog Charlie to sleep. "I need to tell you something," he says, his voice rough like he's been swallowing sandpaper. "Something I should have told you years ago, but I was too proud, too scared." Lucia sits down next to me, and Mom takes the spot beside Dad. We're like some weird support group for families who don't know how to communicate, sitting around a picnic table that still has crumbs from my nephew's birthday cake. "Remember when you were 16 and you asked me why we never talked about my father's family?" Dad continues, looking directly at me. "Why there were no pictures of his parents in our house? No stories about where he came from?" I nod. I'd always wondered about the mysterious gap in our family history. But Dad would change the subject every time I brought it up. He'd start talking about baseball or ask me about homework, anything to avoid discussing Grandpa Joe's past. "I told you he died when I was young, that he didn't like to talk about the past because it made him sad." That was partially true. Dad takes a shaky breath. "That sounds like it hurts. But what I didn't tell you was that my father wasn't the man I thought he was." "What do you mean?" The genetic testing I had done for my physical revealed some things about my DNA. Things that didn't match what Dad told us about his background, about where he came from. He pauses, looking directly at me with those red-rimmed eyes. "It turns out my father had a whole other family before us. Children he abandoned when they were young. A wife he left behind." The pieces start clicking together in my head, but I don't want them to make sense. I don't want this conversation to be going where I think it's going. One of those children he abandoned, Dad continues, his voice getting smaller, was a little girl named Rosa. She would have been your aunt if Dad had been the kind of man who stuck around to raise his kids. My throat feels tight. Why are you telling me this now? Because 3 months ago, someone contacted me through one of those ancestry websites? A woman in her 70s who's been looking for her father her whole life? She had his name, his approximate age when he left, and a photograph that looks exactly like you when you smile. The world tilts sideways. I grip the edge of the picnic table to keep from falling off the bench. Her name is Elena Morales, Dad says quietly. She lives in Portland, Oregon. And when you told me you were taking that job at the children's hospital, there, when you were so excited about the fresh start and the new opportunities, double quotes, he stops, shaking his head. I panicked. I thought maybe somehow you knew. Maybe you were trying to find her. I don't understand. But even as I say it, I do understand. The job opportunity that fell into my lap out of nowhere, the hospital that recruited me specifically, even though I was just another pediatric nurse from Philadelphia, the strange sense of belonging I felt when I visited Portland for the interview. She's been looking for family for 60 years, Dad continues. And when she found me through the genetic testing, she found out about you kids too. She's been following your careers, your lives. She's the one who recommended you for the pediatric nursing position. The air leaves my lungs in a rush, are you saying? I'm saying your great-aunt has been watching over you your whole life, waiting for the right moment to bring you into her world, and I was terrified that if you moved to Portland, I'd lose you the same way my father lost his first family. Mom reaches across the table and squeezes my hand. He thought if he pushed you away first, it would hurt less when you chose them over us. I stare at Dad, this man who raised me, who taught me right from wrong, who worked double shifts to pay for my nursing school even when money was tight. This man who just destroyed our relationship because he was afraid of losing me. So you decided to lose me first? I asked. He nods, tears flowing freely now. Stupidest thing I've ever done. And, Sophia, I've done some pretty stupid things in my life. Dad, I start. But then my phone buzzes with another text message. I almost ignore it, but something makes me glance at the screen. The message is from the same Portland number as before, but this time the words make my blood run cold. Sophia, this is Alina. I'm at the hospital. There's been an emergency, and I need to see you immediately. Please come to Portland as soon as possible. It's about your grandfather and it can't wait. I show the message to my family. Dad's face goes white. How does she even have your number? Mom asks, her voice shaky. I don't know, I say, but I'm already standing up, grabbing my car keys from the table. But I'm going to find out. Not alone, Dad says, standing up too. His jaw is set in that determined way I recognize from childhood, when he'd decided something needed to be done and nothing was going to stop him. If Elena Morales wants to meet my daughter, she's going to have to go through me first. Dad, you don't have to? Yes, I do. He looks at me with something that might be desperation. I've spent 3 months pushing you away because I was afraid of losing you to people I've never met. But if you're going to Portland to find out about our family's past, then I'm going with you. Because whatever secrets my father kept, whatever mistakes he made, I'm not going to let them destroy our family too. Lucia stands up and starts clearing the table with quick, efficient movements. How long is the drive to Portland? About 3 hours, I say. But Lou, you don't need to. We're all going. Mom interrupts, already pulling out her phone to call Uncle Marco. If there's family we've never met, if there are answers to questions we've been asking for years, then we face this together. I look around at my family. Dad with his red eyes and determined expression. Mom making arrangements with the efficiency of a woman who's held this family together through every crisis. Lucia already figuring out the logistics of an impromptu road trip, and I realize that maybe Elena Morales isn't the only one who's been waiting 60 years for this moment. Maybe we all have been. Okay, I say, pocketing my phone. Let's go to Portland. Let's find out what really happened to Grandpa, Joe's first family, and let's figure out why a woman I've never met thinks she needs to see me right now. Dad nods and puts his arm around my shoulders. For the first time in months, it doesn't feel awkward or forced. Whatever we find out, he says quietly, whatever Elena Morales wants to tell us about my father, we face it together as a family. I lean into him, smelling his familiar aftershave and the lingering scent of Uncle Marco's barbecue sauce on his shirt. Together, I agree. But as we walk toward our cars, I can't shake the feeling that Elena's emergency text means we're already too late for something. Too late to prevent something terrible from happening, or too late to say goodbye to someone important. The drive to Portland suddenly feels like the longest 3 hours of my life. Portland General Hospital at night looks like something out of a medical drama. All harsh fluorescent lights and the smell of disinfectant that never quite covers up the underlying scent of fear and hope mixed together. Dad and I haven't spoken much during the 3-hour drive here, but he's stayed right beside me through every mile. Following my car in his truck while Mom and Lucia ride with him, we meet in the parking garage, our footsteps echoing off concrete walls as we walk toward the main entrance. The automatic doors whoosh open, and suddenly we're in the bright, sterile world of late-night emergency medicine. "Can I help you?" asks the woman at the information desk. She's young, probably my age, with tired eyes that suggest she's been dealing with worried families all day. "We're looking for Alina Morales," I say, my voice sounding strange and formal. "She works here and she asked us to come." The woman types something into her computer. "Are you family?" I look at Dad, who nods. "Yes." I say we're family. She's waiting in the family consultation room on the 3rd floor. "Take the elevator. To your right, then follow the signs." The elevator ride feels endless. Dad keeps checking his watch, and Mom keeps smoothing down her hair like she's getting ready to meet the president instead of a woman who claims to be our long-lost relative. Lucia is scrolling through her phone, probably texting Marco Jr. to let him know we made it safely. "What if this is all some kind of mistake?" Mom asks as we reach the 3rd floor. "What if this Alina person is confused about who we are? Then we'll figure that out," Dad says firmly. "But Sophia got that job offer for a reason, and genetic testing doesn't lie." We follow the signs down a corridor that smells like coffee and anxiety. The family consultation room is at the end of the hall, and through the small window in the door, I can see a woman sitting alone at a small table. Alina Morales is smaller than I expected, maybe 5'2" in her sensible shoes. With silver hair pulled back in a neat bun, she's wearing scrubs with cartoon bears on them, and there's something about her face that makes my heart skip a beat. Her eyes, they're my eyes. The same dark brown with gold flecks that I've seen in the mirror my whole life. "That's her," I whisper. "To Dad." He takes a deep breath and knocks on the door. "Come in," Alina calls, and when we enter, she stands up slowly like her bones hurt. Her gaze moves from Dad to Mom to Lucia, but when she looks at me, she gasps softly. "Sophia," she says, and her voice breaks on my name. "You look so much like him." Like my father when he was young, Dad steps protectively in front of me. "Mrs. Morales, I think we need to have a conversation about what you want from my family." But Alina isn't looking at him. She's looking past us all, out the window where the city lights twinkle like earthbound stars. "There isn't time for long conversations anymore, Vincent. That's why I asked Sophia to come." "What do you mean there isn't time?" I ask, moving around Dad to face her directly. She turns back to us, and I see something in her expression that makes my stomach clench. It's the look medical professionals get when they're about to deliver news that will change everything. "I've been a nurse in this hospital for 47 years, she says quietly. "Started when I was 23, right out of school. I've seen thousands of patients come and go, but tonight," she pauses, gathering herself. "Tonight, I need to ask you all to come with me to room 314. "Why?" Dad asks, but Alina is already walking toward the door. "Because the patient in that room has been waiting for you," she says. "All of you, but especially Sophia." We follow her down the corridor, past rooms where families are gathered around bedsides, past the nurses' station where tired-looking staff are charting medications and checking on patients. The hospital at night has a different energy than during the day, quieter, more intense, like the building itself is holding its breath. Room 314 is at the end of the hall. Alina stops outside the door and turns to face us. Before we go in, she says, "I need you to understand something. I didn't arrange for Sophia to get that job in Portland just because I wanted to meet her. I did it because the patient in this room specifically requested her." "I don't understand." I say, "I don't even work here yet. I'm not supposed to start for another month. The patient has been waiting for you for 3 months. Alina continues. "Ever since he found out about the family connection, he's been fighting to stay alive long enough to meet you." Dad grabs my arm. "Alina, what are you talking about? Who's in that room?" She looks at him with something that might be pity. "Your father, Vincent? Joe Castellano is in that room, and he's been waiting 60 years to apologize to his family." The world stops spinning. I hear Dad make a sound like he's been punched in the stomach, but it seems to come from very far away. "That's impossible," he whispers. "My father died 20 years ago. We buried him." "You buried someone else," Alina says gently. "Someone who stole Joe's identity when your father decided he couldn't live with what he'd done to his first family? Joe has been living under a different name all these years, working as a janitor here at the hospital, trying to make amends the only way he knew how." Mom sinks into one of the chairs along the hallway wall. "This can't be happening. He saw your picture in the nursing journal when you graduated," Alina continues. Looking at me, the one where you were volunteering with the Children's Cancer Unit, he knew immediately that you were family. Dad hasn't moved from where he's standing. He's staring at the door to room 314 like he's seeing a ghost, which I guess he is. He's been asking for you specifically, Sophia. He says he has something he needs to give you before. Alina doesn't finish the sentence, but she doesn't need to. The machines we can hear humming behind the door tell their own story. I step closer to the door, and Alina opens it slowly there. Lying in the hospital bed with tubes and wires connecting him to machines that are keeping him alive is a man I've never seen before, but somehow recognized his face is older, more weathered than in the few pictures I've seen. But the bone structure is unmistakable. This is where my face came from. This is my grandfather. He's been waiting for you, Alina whispers. He has something he needs to tell you about why he left. About what he's been trying to fix all these years. As if he can hear us talking, the man in the bed opens his eyes. They're tired and clouded with pain and medication, but when he sees me, something lights up in them. Sophia, he whispers, and his voice is so weak I have to lean close to hear. Him you came, I'm here, I say, because I don't know what else to say. To a grandfather I thought was dead. Behind me, I can hear Dad crying. Not the quiet tears from earlier, but the deep, good trenching sobs of a man who's just discovered that his father has been alive all these years. Watching from the shadows, too ashamed to come home, I need to tell you something, Joe whispers, his eyes fixed on mine, about why I left, about what I've been trying to fix, about what I'm going to leave behind for you to carry on. He tries to lift his hand and I take it in mine. His skin is paper thin and cold, but his grip is surprisingly strong. There's so much you don't know, he continues. So much I need to explain before it's too late. I pull the visitor's chair closer to Joe's bed, my hand still wrapped around his cold fingers. Behind me, Dad has stopped crying, but I can hear him breathing hard, like he's just run a marathon. Mom and Lucia hover near the doorway, not sure if they should come closer or give us space. Tell me, I say to Joe, my voice barely above a whisper, tell me what happened. Joe's eyes drift closed for a moment, and I'm afraid he's slipped away. But then he opens them again and looks directly at me. I was 23 when I left my first family, he begins, his voice so weak that Alina adjusts his oxygen mask. Rosa was just a baby, barely 6 months old. The twins, Michael and David, were 2 years old. Their mother, Carmen, was trying to raise 3 babies almost by herself because I was working 2 jobs and still couldn't make ends meet. He pauses, coughing slightly. I told myself I was leaving to find better work, to send money back. But the truth was, I was scared, terrified, of being responsible for so many lives when I could barely take care of myself. Dad moves closer to the bed, his face pale but determined. Dad, you don't have to? Yes, I do. Joe interrupts with more strength than I expected. I've had 60 years to think about what I should have said, what I should have done. Let me say it now. Alina checks the machines around his bed, adjusting something that makes the beeping slow down slightly. His heart rate is elevated, she says quietly, but he's been asking to tell this story for months. I think he needs to get it out. Joe nods gratefully at Alina, then turns back to me. I left Portland on a Tuesday morning in 1962. Told Carmen I'd be back in 2 weeks with money and a plan. I never went back. Why? The question comes from Dad, and it sounds like it's been trapped in his throat for decades. Because I was a coward, Joe says simply. Because every day that passed made it harder to go home and face what I'd done. Because I convinced myself that they were better off without me. He squeezes my hand tighter, and I'm surprised by how much strength he still has. I came to California and met your grandmother Maria 6 months later. She was kind and patient, and she didn't ask too many questions about my past. When Vincent was born, I promised myself I'd be different. I'd be the father I should have been to my first children. But you were different, Dad says, his voice thick with emotion. You were a good father to us. You stayed. You worked hard. You provided for our family. I was present in body. Joe agrees, but I was never fully there. Vincent. Part of me was always thinking about the children I'd left behind, wondering if they were okay, if they needed me. Alina sits down in the chair on the other side of the bed. Joe hired private investigators over the years, she explains. He's been tracking his first family's lives from a distance, making sure they were okay. That's how I found out about Alina. Joe continues, looking at the woman who's clearly been more than just his coworker. She was Rosa's daughter, my granddaughter. She'd been working in this same hospital for 20 years before I started here as a janitor, and neither of us knew we were related. I look at Alina with new understanding. You're Rosa's daughter. She nods, tears in her eyes. My mother died 5 years ago. Cancer. She spent her whole life wondering why her father left. never knowing that he'd been keeping track of her from hundreds of miles away. I wanted so badly to go to Rosa's funeral, Joe whispers. Alina didn't know who I was then, but I was there. In the back of the church, watching my daughter being buried, never having had the chance to tell her I was sorry. The room falls silent, except for the steady beeping of the heart monitor. I think about all the family gatherings where Joe seemed sad. All the times he'd get quiet when we talked about relatives. All the moments when I'd catch him staring at nothing with that faraway look in his eyes. How did you find out Alina was your granddaughter? I ask. Hospital records, Alina explains. When Joe started working here 15 years ago, he put down his real birth date and birthplace on his employment forms. I was doing genealogy research and noticed that a Joseph Campbell who worked in our building had the same birthday and birthplace as the grandfather. I'd been looking for my whole life. It took us 3 years to work up the courage to talk about it, Joe adds. 3 years of passing each other in the hallways, both of us wondering if we were imagining the resemblance. Dad sits down heavily in another chair. So, for the last 12 years, you've known you had a granddaughter, and you've been working together? More than working together, Alina says softly. Joe became the father figure I never had. He walked me down the aisle when I got married. He's been at every birthday party for my children. He helped put my son through medical school. But you never told him about us, Mom asks from the doorway. Joe shakes his head. I made Alina promise not to contact Vincent's family. I was too ashamed. Too afraid that reaching out would only cause more pain. Then what changed? I ask. Why now? Joe tries to sit up a little straighter, and Alina immediately moves to help him adjust his pillows. Because 6 months ago, I was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. The doctors gave me maybe a year to live, probably less. The machines around his bed start beeping faster again, and Alina frowns at the readings. And because Joe continues, his breathing becoming more labored. Alina showed me an article about you in the nursing journal, about your work with children's cancer patients, about how you chose to spend your life helping kids who were scared and alone. He looks directly at me, and I see something in his eyes that I can't quite identify. I realize that you'd become the person I should have been 60 years ago, someone who shows up for children who need them, someone who doesn't run away when things get difficult. Joe, Alina says gently, your heart rate is getting too high. You need to rest. But he shakes his head stubbornly. Not yet. He reaches under his pillow with his free hand and pulls out a small velvet box, the kind that holds jewelry. This was my mother's ring. I've been carrying it for 60 years, waiting for the right moment to pass it on. He holds the box out to me with trembling hands. I want you to have it, Sophia. Not because you're the only granddaughter. Elena's daughters deserve their share of the family legacy too. But because you're the one who chose to heal children instead of abandoning them. You're everything I should have been. I take the box, but before I can open it, the machines around Joe's bed start making different sounds. I need to call the doctor, she says, reaching for the call button. Alina hesitates, then nods and stays by the bed. Open it, Joe whispers, nodding. Toward the ring box in my hands, inside, nestled in faded white satin, is the most beautiful ring I've ever seen. It's not large or flashy, just a simple band of gold with a small diamond surrounded by tiny emeralds. But there's something about it that makes my breath catch. Irish women, both of them, who came to this country with nothing but hope and the determination to build better lives for their children. I slip the ring onto my finger and it fits perfectly. As soon as it's in place, I feel something shift. Inside me, like a piece of a puzzle I didn't know was missing, has finally clicked into place. There's one more thing, Joe continues, his breathing becoming more shallow. The job in Portland. It's not just any job, Sophia. Alina and I have been working together to create something special, something that will help children whose parents can't be with them. What do you mean? I ask. Alina moves closer to the bed. We call it the Family Bridge Program. For the last 5 years, we've been developing a system to place specially trained nurses in hospitals across the country to work specifically with children who don't have family support, children whose parents are deployed overseas. Joe adds weakly, kids in foster care, families who can't afford to take time off work to be at the hospital, children who need someone to make sure they never feel abandoned. The pieces start coming together in my mind. You created this program because you know what abandonment feels like. I created this program because I know what it feels like to abandon someone, Joe corrects gently. And I wanted to make sure that no child in a hospital bed ever has to wonder if they're worth staying for. The machines start beeping frantically again, and this time Alina doesn't hesitate. She immediately calls for the medical team. Joe, I say urgently, leaning closer to the bed. What happens to the program? Now. He squeezes my hand one more time, using what feels like the last of his strength. That's up to you, sweetheart. Alina will explain everything, but Sophia ... promise me something, anything. Promise me you'll take the job. Promise me you'll help those children know that someone cares enough to stay. Thank you, he breathes. Thank you for giving me the chance to finally do something right. Joe dies 20 minutes later, surrounded by the family he spent 60 years watching from the shadows. Dad holds his other hand as the heart monitor flatlines, and I'm struck by how different this death is from the one we thought we'd grieved 20 years ago. That death was bitter, full of unanswered questions and unresolved anger. This death feels like completion, like a circle closing in exactly the way it was meant to. Alina handles the arrangements with the quiet efficiency of someone who's dealt with death countless times, but I can see the grief in the way her hands shake slightly as she fills out paperwork. She's lost more than a coworker tonight. She's lost the grandfather figure. Dad asks as we sit in the family consultation room, watching the sun come up over Portland. Through the tall windows, her eyes are red from crying, but there's something determined in her expression. Before you leave, she says, sitting down across from us, there are some things Joe wanted me to give you, things he's been preparing for months. She opens the folder, and inside are legal documents, bank statements, and what looks like a detailed business plan for the Family Bridge program. Joe spent the last year of his life making sure everything would be ready when you decided to take the job, she explains to me. The apartment he arranged for you is 2 blocks from the hospital, fully furnished with the first year's rent already paid. He did all this without knowing if I'd even say yes. He said Castellanos might be stubborn, but they're not stupid. He knew that once you understood what the program was about, you wouldn't be able to walk away from children who needed you. Dad picks up one of the bank statements and his eyebrows shoot up. There's enough money here to fund the program for years. Much longer than that, actually. Joe was very good with investments. Alina smiles sadly. He used to joke that being afraid to spend money on himself for 60 years turned out to be excellent retirement planning. What about his first family? Mom asks the children he left behind. Do they know he's gone? That's where things get interesting. Joe wasn't the only one who spent 60 years looking for lost family members. She pulls out her phone and scrolls through some photos. 2 months ago, I got a call from a lawyer in San Francisco. Apparently, Rosa's brothers, the twins, Joe, abandoned, have been searching for their father their entire adult lives. My heart stops. The twins are still alive. Very much alive. They're both doctors now. And they've been running a clinic in San Francisco that provides free medical and psychological services to families dealing with abandonment issues. Dad stares at her. You're telling me I have 2 half-brothers I've never met? Alina shows us photos on her phone of 2 men in their 70s, both with the unmistakable Castellano bone structure. They've been doing their own version of the Family Bridge program for 20 years, except they call it the Healing Hearts Initiative. I feel like the world is spinning too fast. How is that possible? Because abandonment creates either destroyers or healers, Alina explains. Joe became a healer. His sons became healers. You became a healer. It's like a family. Calling passed down through DNA instead of direct teaching. Do they know about us? Lucia asks. They know about Joe's second family, yes, and they know he just passed away. Alina's voice gets excited. They're flying to Portland this weekend. They want to meet all of you, and they want to discuss combining their clinic model with our hospital program. The room falls silent as we all process this information. In the span of one night, I've learned that my grandfather faked his death. There's something else. Alina continues, her voice getting softer. Something Joe made me promise to tell you only after he was gone. What is it? I ask. The night you were born, Sophia Joe was working his shift here at the hospital. He heard your father calling to tell your grandmother that his daughter had arrived safely, and Joe broke down crying in the supply closet. She pauses, gathering herself. He told me later that he'd spent 30 years wondering if he'd ever have a granddaughter, if he'd ever get the chance to watch a little girl grow up the way he should have watched Rosa. When he heard Vincent talking about his baby daughter, Joe said it felt like getting a second chance he didn't deserve. Dad wipes his eyes. He never said anything. He couldn't. But he's been following Sophia's life from the very beginning. Every school play, every graduation, every achievement, Joe knew about all of it. He was so proud of the woman you became, Sophia. He used to carry pictures of you in his wallet. Alina reaches into the folder and pulls out a worn wallet. Inside are dozens of photos, me, at various ages, school pictures, newspaper clippings, from when I got my nursing degree, even a photo from the hospital newsletter when I was featured for my volunteer work. He kept all of these. I whisper. He kept everything. Joe documented every moment of his second family's life that he could, and he documented every dollar he spent trying to make amends to his first family. Alina shows us more bank statements. These accounts show anonymous donations to scholarships, medical bills that were mysteriously paid. mortgage payments that were made when families were struggling. Dad stares at the papers. He was supporting both families all these years. He was trying to be the father he should have been, the only way he knew how. From a distance, through anonymous kindness, by making sure no one in either family ever went without. I think about my college loans that were mysteriously forgiven, about the scholarship I got in nursing school that I never quite understood, about the times our family seemed to catch lucky breaks when money was tight. How much of our lives did he influence? I ask. More than you'll ever know, Alina admits. But Sophia, he didn't do it to control your choices. He did it to make sure you had choices. To make sure that, unlike his first children, you and your siblings would never have to struggle because your father wasn't there to provide for you. My phone buzzes with a text message. The number is unfamiliar, but when I read it, my heart starts racing. Hello, Sophia. This is Dr. Michael Morales. Alina told us about our father's passing. We're very sorry for your loss. And ours. We'd like to meet you and your family this weekend to discuss continuing Joe's work together. We have much to tell you about the family you never knew you had. I show the message to everyone. Dad looks stunned. They're reaching out already, he asks. They've been waiting 60 years to meet their father's second family, Alina explains. Now that Joe is gone, there's nothing stopping them from connecting with you directly. I look around at my family, Dad still processing the shock of losing his father twice, Mom trying to understand how our entire family history has just been rewritten, Lucia already pulling out her phone to probably start researching these new relatives. What do you think? I ask Dad. Are you ready to meet your half-brothers? Dad is quiet for a long moment, staring at the photos of Michael and David on Alina's phone. I think, he says finally, that if Joe spent his whole life trying to bring his families together, the least we can do is let him succeed. Alina smiles through her tears. He would have loved that. Joe always believed that families find their way back to each other if they're meant to. So what's the plan? I ask. Michael and David will be here Saturday, Alina says. They want to tour the hospital, meet the staff, and see the Family Bridge program in action. But mostly they want to meet the niece who's going to carry on their father's work. I touch the ring on my finger, feeling the weight of Joe's legacy settling around me like a comfortable blanket. Then I guess we're having a family reunion. A real one this time. Dad reaches over and squeezes my hand. Think you're ready for more family surprises? I look at the business plan for the Family Bridge program, at the photos of the Gretz uncles I've never met, at the bank statements showing Joe's lifetime of quiet generosity. I think about the children in hospitals who need someone to advocate for them, about the healing that can happen when families find their way back to each other. I think I say that some stories are bigger than the people living them. And this story isn't over yet. Alina nods approvingly. Joe would have been so proud to hear you say that. As we gather up the papers and prepare to leave the hospital where Joe spent his final years trying to heal the wounds he'd created, I realize that everything that happened at the family reunion yesterday, Dad's cruel words, my dramatic exit, the painful confrontation was just the beginning of a much larger story. A story about how love persists across decades of separation, how guilt can be transformed into purpose, how families can be broken apart by fear and brought back together by forgiveness, and how sometimes the most important family reunions happen in hospital rooms, with machines beeping in the background. And 70 years of secrets finally being spoken aloud, Joe's story is ending. But the Family Bridge program is just beginning. And for the first time since I walked out of Uncle Marco's backyard, I understand exactly what I'm supposed to do with my life. 3 days later, I'm standing in the pediatric ward of Portland Children's Hospital, wearing my new ID badge and watching Alina train me on the Family Bridge program protocols. The ward buzzes with the controlled chaos of medical care. Nurses checking on patients, doctors making rounds, families keeping vigil beside small beds. The key, Alina explains as we walk past a room where a grandmother is reading to her grandson, is understanding that these children don't just need medical care. They need someone to make sure they feel valued, protected, loved. We stop outside room row 12, where a 7-year-old boy named Marcus is lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. His chart shows that his parents are deployed overseas with the military, and his grandmother is flying in from 3 states away but won't arrive until tomorrow. Marcus Alina knocks gently on the doorframe. I'd like you to meet Sophia. She's going to be working with children whose families can't be here right now. Marcus turns to look at us, and I see something in his eyes that breaks my heart. It's the same look I used to get as a kid when I was scared and trying not to show it. Are you a doctor? He asks me. I'm a nurse, I tell him, moving closer to his bed. But more than that, I'm someone who's going to make sure you're not alone while you're here. My parents are in Afghanistan, Marcus says matter-of-factly. They couldn't come because of their mission. Grandma's coming tomorrow, but her plane got delayed. I sit down in the chair beside his bed. That must be scary. Having surgery scheduled when your family can't be here yet? Marcus nods, and I can see him trying not to cry. What if something happens and they never get to see me again? It's the question that every child in this situation is thinking but afraid to ask. The question that Joe spent 60 years trying to answer through anonymous donations and secret support. Nothing's going to happen, I tell Marcus firmly. But even if you're scared, you're not going to be alone. I'm going to be right here with you before your surgery, and I'll be here when you wake up, and your grandma will be here tomorrow with pictures and stories and probably too much food. Marcus smiles for the first time since we entered the room. She always brings too much food. That's what grandmas do. I agree. They show love through extra sandwiches and cookies you can't possibly finish. As we continue our rounds, Alina shows me the family housing units Joe helped design, small apartments where relatives can stay when they're far from home. Emergency funds to help with travel expenses, and a coordination system that helps military families stay connected. During medical crises, Joe thought of everything, Alina says as we review the program manual in her office. Every detail designed to make sure no child feels abandoned, even temporarily. My phone buzzes with a text from Dad. Michael and David's flight lands in 2 hours. Are you ready for this? I look around Elena's office at the photos on her walls showing families reunited, children healed, programs expanded to other hospitals. Joe's invisible hand is everywhere in the comfortable furniture that doesn't look institutional, in the family liaison program that helps coordinate care, in the scholarship fund that helps train nurses in family-centered care, as ready as anyone can be to meet great uncles they never knew existed. I text back, "We're all nervous," comes his reply, but also excited. Mom made enough lasagna to feed a small army, just in case they're hungry. I smile, because of course Mom responded. 2. Meeting new family members by cooking enough food for twice as many people as necessary. It's her way of showing love when she doesn't know what else to do. 2 hours later, I'm back at Portland General's main entrance, waiting with Dad, Mom, and Lucia for 2 men we've never met, but who share our DNA and our grandfather's complicated legacy. That's them, Dad says suddenly, pointing toward the glass doors. I know he's right immediately. Michael and David Morales walk through the entrance like they belong here, both carrying themselves with the quiet confidence of doctors who've spent their lives helping people. Michael, the older twin, has silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses that make him look like the professor he apparently is when he's not running free clinics. David is slightly shorter with darker hair and laugh lines around his eyes that suggest he's the one who keeps things light when the work gets heavy. But what strikes me most is how they move together. Their steps synchronized in that way that only comes from a lifetime of shared experiences. They look like they've been each other's anchor through everything, the way twins sometimes do when they're all the family each other has had. Vincent? Michael approaches Dad with careful hope in his voice. I'm Michael, this is my brother David. Dad steps forward, and for a moment I'm afraid this is going to be awkward. That 60 years of separation can't be bridged by good intentions and shared genetics. Then Dad pulls Michael into a hug. I'm sorry, Dad says, his voice thick with emotion. I'm so sorry that our father hurt you, that he left you when you needed him. He hurt all of us, David replies, embracing Dad as well. But he also created something beautiful from that pain, something that brought us all together. They turn to me and I see Joe's eyes looking back at me from 2 faces I've never seen before. You must be Sophia, Michael says. Alina told us about the work you're doing here, about the children you're helping. Thank you for carrying on what our father started. Thank you for finding us, I reply, for not giving up on family even when it seemed impossible. We spend the next hour in the hospital cafeteria trading stories and filling in 60 years of separation. Michael tells us about their adoptive parents, kind people who raised them with love but could never fill the hole left by their biological father's abandonment. David shares stories about their medical school years, how they both chose specialties that would help children and families heal from trauma. We always wondered about Joe's second family, David admits. Whether he'd learned from his mistakes, whether he'd been a better father to his other children. He tried to be, Dad says quietly, but he was never fully present. Part of him was always missing, always carrying the weight of what he'd done to you and Rosa. We spent years angry about that, Michael confesses. Years thinking that if he could start over with a new family, why couldn't he come back and fix things with us? Because he was ashamed, I say, understanding finally clicking into place. He was terrified that if he came back, you'd reject him, and he was probably right. If he'd shown up when you were kids, you might not have been ready to forgive him. Alina appears at our table, carrying a thick folder. I hate to interrupt, she says, but I wanted to show you all something. While you're together, She opens the folder and spreads out what looks like architectural plans. Joe spent the last 2 years designing this. It's a comprehensive family healing center that would combine Michael and David's clinic model with the Family Bridge Hospital program. The plans show a beautiful facility with medical offices, therapy rooms, family housing, and what looks like a children's play area designed to feel more like a park than a medical facility. He wanted to call it the Castellano Center for Family Healing, Alina continues. A place where families separated by medical crises, military deployment, or adoption trauma could come to heal together. Michael and David lean over the plans, their medical expertise evident as they point out thoughtful details in the design. "This is incredible," David says. "The integration between medical care and family therapy. The residential component for families traveling long distances, ... Joe thought of everything. Michael agrees. "This could help thousands of families," Could Dad asks. "What would it take to make this happen?" Alina smiles. "Funding's not an issue. Joe left enough money to build and operate the center for at least 10 years. What we need is commitment from the right people to run it." She looks around the table at all of us. Joe's will specifies that the center can only be built if his 2 families agree to work together. If Vincent and his children join forces with Michael and David to create something that honors all the children, Joe left behind the ones he abandoned and the ones he raised. The table falls silent as the magnitude of what she's proposing sinks in. Joe's final gift isn't just money or programs. It's a reason for his fractured family to come together and heal the wounds he created. "It would mean moving the whole family to Portland," Dad says slowly. "Not necessarily," Michael interjects. "We could build satellite centers. One here, one in San Francisco, maybe one in Philadelphia. A network of family healing centers that could help people across the country." I think about Marcus upstairs, waiting for his grandmother to arrive. About the thousands of children in hospitals who need someone to advocate for them. About the families torn apart by medical crises, military, service, adoption, trauma, and the simple human tendency to run away when things get hard. Joe spent 60 years trying to make amends for one moment of cowardice. I say finally. What if we spent the rest of our lives making sure other families never have to experience that kind of separation? Dad reaches across the table and takes my hand. "Are you saying you want to do this? Build these centers with Michael and David?" I look around at this group of people who were strangers 3 days ago and now feel like the missing pieces of a puzzle I'd been trying to solve my whole life. "I'm saying that some stories are bigger than the people living them," I reply. "And Joe's story doesn't have to end with his death. It can end with his family finally coming together to heal other families." Michael and David look at each other, having one of those silent twin conversations that happen in the space between heartbeats. "We're in," David says simply. "All the way," Michael agrees. Alina beams at us like we've just given her the best gift imaginable. Joe would be so proud. He always believed that love is stronger than the mistakes we make, that families are stronger than the things that try to tear them apart. As we gather up the architectural plans and start making lists of everything that needs to happen to make Joe's vision reality, I realize that the story that started with my father's cruel words at a family reunion has become something much larger and more beautiful than any of us could have imagined. It's become the story of how a family broke apart and found their way back together, not just to heal themselves, but to heal hundreds of other families in the process. That's what love actually looks like, I think. Not the perfect, effortless love of fairy tales, but the messy, persistent, show-up-anyway love that refuses to give up, even when it takes a lifetime to get it right. 6 months later, I'm standing in the brand-new Castellano Center for Family Healing in Portland, watching Dad hang the last picture in what will be our family memorial wall. It's a photo of Joe from his hospital ID badge, not glamorous, but real. The man who spent 30 years as a janitor, quietly funding scholarships and paying medical bills, making sure families stayed together even when he couldn't bring his own family home. Perfect, Alina says, stepping back to admire Dad's work. Joe would love seeing his picture next to Rosa's and next to photos of all the children the program has helped. The memorial wall tells the story of our family in pictures. Rosa holding baby Alina, Michael and David graduating medical school, Dad teaching me to ride a bike, Lucia with her nursing degree, families reunited in hospital rooms, children laughing in our new play therapy areas. How many families have we helped so far? I ask Alina, reviewing the quarterly reports spread across my new desk. 243 children through the hospital program, she says proudly, and 78 families through the residential healing program here at the center. The numbers are incredible, but what I love most are the individual stories. Like Marcus, who came back last month to show us his clean scan results and introduce us to his baby sister. like the Thompson family who'd been separated for 3 years after their father's military injury, and who worked with David's therapy team to rebuild their relationship, like Mrs. Chen, whose daughter was in foster care, and who used our family advocacy program to successfully petition for reunification. The San Francisco Center opens next month, Michael says, walking into my office with coffee and that satisfied expression he gets when construction milestones are met, and the Philadelphia location starts accepting families in the fall. David's already training staff for the Denver expansion, I add, pulling up the scheduling software we use to coordinate between centers. We're going to help more families in 1 year than Joe could have imagined in his lifetime. Alina sits down in the comfortable chair Dad picked out tea. He insisted that anyone dealing with family trauma deserved furniture that felt like home instead of an institution. You know what I think Joe would be most proud of? What's that? That his 2 families didn't just come together, they chose each other. You could have taken his money and run separate programs, but instead you built something bigger than any of you could have created alone. She's right. The Castellano Centers work because they combine Michael's medical expertise, David's therapy background, my nursing experience with children, Dad's practical construction knowledge, and Elena's decades of hospital administration. Even Lucia contributes by training our family advocates. And Mom has become the unofficial grandmother to every child who comes through our residential program. Speaking of choosing family, I say, glancing at my calendar, isn't today the day? Alina nods, her eyes lighting up. The Martinez family should be here any minute for their reunion session. The Martinez family is why we do this work. 8-year-old Sofia Martinez has been in foster care for 2 years after her parents' divorce became so toxic that neither could provide a stable home. Her parents, Carmen and Roberto, have spent the last 6 months in our family healing program, learning how to communicate without hurting each other and how to put their daughter's needs first. Today is the day Sofia gets to go home. There they are, Elena says, looking out the window at the family arriving in the parking lot. I watch Carmen and Roberto walk toward our building. Not together, but not avoiding each other either. Sofia skips between them, holding both their hands. It's taken months of therapy, mediation, and hard work to get them to this point. But seeing that little girl with both her parents, even if they'll never be married again, makes every difficult session worth it. They've learned how to co-parent effectively. They've both completed the anger management program, and Sofia's been thriving in the transitional housing here. The transitional housing was Dad's idea. Small apartments where families can live together while working through their issues with staff support available 24 hours a day. It's been one of our most successful innovations, allowing children to maintain stability while their families heal. And the best part, I say, watching Sofia race toward our front door, is that they'll have ongoing support, weekly check-ins, access to emergency mediation, and Sofia gets to keep coming to our kids' support group. That's what makes the Castellano Centers different from traditional family therapy. Networks of families who understand what it means to fight for each other. My phone buzzes with a text from Marcus's grandmother. Marcus wants to know if he can visit the center next week. I smile and text back. Of course we'd love to see him. That's the thing about this work, that Joe understood but took him 60 years to learn. Healing isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing process of showing up, checking in, making sure people know they matter. It's the difference between abandoning someone and creating a chosen family that lasts. Dad appears in my doorway, wearing his construction clothes and a satisfied expression. The new wing is ready for the final inspection. We'll be able to accommodate 20 more families by the end of the month. Any word from the applications for the Chicago Center, I ask? Michael says the City Council approved our proposal unanimously. They're especially excited about the military family support program. Dad grins. Apparently, they've never seen a proposal that included built-in childcare, transportation assistance, and emergency housing all in one facility. About where you're going to sleep or how you're going to afford gas to get to therapy, mixed with photos of our own family gatherings. You know what Joe would say if he could see all this? What? He'd say that the best way to heal from abandonment is to make sure no one else ever has to experience it. It's David looking excited. About something, sorry to bother you, but I just got off the phone with the Department of Health and Human Services. They want to fund a pilot program to place Castellano Centers in 10 more cities over the next 3 years. I stare at him. 10 more cities. 10 more cities. Full federal funding. Plus, they want us to train other organizations to use our model. Sofia, we're talking about helping thousands of families. Alina starts crying. Happy tears, but still tears. Joe would have never imagined this. Never in his wildest dreams. Maybe that's the point, I say, thinking about the ring on my finger that connects me to generations of women who chose love over fear. Maybe the point isn't to limit our dreams to what one person can imagine. Maybe the point is to dream as big as the love we're trying to share. Dad hugs me, and I can smell his familiar aftershave mixed with sawdust from the construction site. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Prouder than I ever thought possible. Even prouder than you were at the family reunion. Especially prouder than I was at the family reunion, he says, seriously. That day, I was scared of losing you. Through my office window, I can see the Martinez family walking toward their car. Sophia chattering excitedly while her parents listen with the careful attention of people who've learned how precious these moments are. In a few hours, she'll be in her own bedroom in her mother's house, with a detailed custody schedule that ensures she see her father regularly, and with the knowledge that if problems arise, there are people who will help them work it out. You know what the best part is? I ask my family, my chosen family, my biological family, my work family, all mixed together in the beautiful, complicated way that real families always are. What's that? Elena asks. We're not just healing other families, we're healing ourselves. Every child we help, every family we reunite. David nods thoughtfully. It's like he found a way to transform his worst mistake into his greatest gift. Not just his gift. I correct, our gift. The gift we give to each other when we choose to show up, to stay, to fight for love even when it's hard. Thought you'd want to know, we just had our 100th successful family reunification. The staff wanted me to tell you that Joe's vision is alive and growing every day. I forward the email to Michael, David, Elena, and Dad, adding my own message. This is what legacy looks like. Not just money or buildings, but lives changed, families healed, love multiplied across generations, painting the Portland skyline in shades of gold and pink. I think about the journey that brought us all here, from Dad's cruel words at a family reunion to this moment. Surrounded by the family we've chosen and the work we've built together, Joe's story ended with his death. But his legacy is just beginning. Every child who doesn't have to wonder if they're worth staying for, every person who discovers that love is a choice rather than a feeling, they're all part of his continuing story, and maybe that's what family really means. Not just the people who share your DNA, but the people who choose to show up for each other day after day. Building something beautiful from the broken pieces of the past. Tomorrow, we'll help more families heal. We'll expand to new cities, train new staff, and Mom is probably already setting too many places at the table, and where we'll continue the ongoing work of being a family, imperfect, complicated, but absolutely committed to each other. That's what love actually looks like in the end. Not the perfect moment, but the 1,000 imperfect moments where we choose each other anyway. 1 year after Joe's death, I'm back in Philadelphia for the opening ceremony of our East Coast Castellano Center, when Elena calls with news that changes everything I thought I knew about our family story. Sophia, she says, and I can hear the excitement in her voice even over the phone. You need to sit down. I just received a call that's going to turn everything upside down again. I'm in the parking lot outside the new Philadelphia Center. David helps Lucia coordinate the media interviews. The sight makes me smile because this is what family looks like when it works. People showing up for each other's victories, building something beautiful together. What kind of call? I ask Elena, though part of me is afraid to hear the answer. We've had enough life-changing revelations to last several lifetimes. From a lawyer in San Francisco, Sophia, Joe wasn't the only one who spent 60 years looking for his family. Something in her tone makes my stomach flip. What do you mean? Remember I told you about Michael and David, how they'd been searching for their father their whole lives? Of course. Well, they weren't the only ones searching. There were other people looking for Joe, too. People we never knew existed. I sink down onto a bench near the center's entrance, suddenly needing the support. Elena, what are you talking about? The lawyer represents a woman named Isabella Castellano Chen. She's 82 years old, and she's been looking for her brother, Joe, for 70 years. The world tilts sideways. Her brother. Joe had a sister, Sophia, a younger sister who was only 12 when he left home the first time, before he even met Carmen and had the twins. Joe didn't just abandon his wife and children, he abandoned his entire family of origin. I feel like I can't breathe. That's impossible. Joe never mentioned a sister. Dad never knew about any aunts or uncles, because Joe was so ashamed of leaving everyone behind that he never talked about his original family. Isabella has been searching for him since she was old enough to hire private investigators. She found the twins 20 years ago and has been helping fund their clinic work ever since. My phone nearly slips from my hands. She's been funding Michael and David's clinic for 20 years. She's the anonymous donor who made their free services possible. Sophia, your great-aunt, has been supporting Joe's abandoned children without any of us knowing, including Michael and David themselves. I stare across the parking lot at Michael, who's now helping Dad plant roses in the memorial garden, completely unaware that his primary funding source is about to be revealed as his long-lost aunt. How did she find us now? Elena's voice gets even more excited. the same way everyone else has been finding us through news coverage of the Castellano centers. When she saw the articles about Joe's death and the family healing program, she immediately knew she'd found her brothers. Legacy? Where has she been all these years? Living in San Francisco, about 20 minutes from Michael and David's clinic, she's been watching their work, supporting their mission, and waiting for the right moment to reveal herself. Why wait? Why not tell them who she was? Because she was afraid they'd reject her for being related to the man who abandoned them. She thought if she helped from a distance, she could make amends for Joe's abandonment without risking more family trauma. I laugh, but it comes out shaky. So she did exactly what Joe did, supported family from the shadows, instead of directly connecting. Exactly, it runs in the family, apparently. The lawyer says Isabella wants to meet all of us, but especially you. Why me? Because you're the one who brought Joe's families together. You're the one who turned his abandonment into a healing mission. She says you've accomplished what she's been trying to do for 70 years. Reunite the family Joe fractured when he left. Dad appears beside my bench, looking concerned. Everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Close, I tell him. I just found out we have another great-aunt we never knew about. Dad sits down heavily beside me. Please tell me this is the last family surprise. I don't think my heart can take any more relatives appearing out of nowhere. Elena, I say into the phone. Can you hold on a minute? I put the call on speaker so Dad can hear. Hi, Vincent, Elena says warmly. Sorry to spring this on you, but Isabella Chen has been waiting 70 years to meet her brother's family. Joe had a sister, Dad asks, his voice full of wonder. A sister who's been funding Michael and David's work for 20 years? A sister who wants to fly to Portland next week to meet everyone and discuss expanding the Castellano centers internationally. Internationally, I ask? Isabella has been building family healing centers across Asia for the last 30 years. She started in Taiwan, where she moved after college, and has expanded to Japan, Korea, and mainland China. She wants to combine her international network with our domestic programs. Dad and I look at each other, both of us struggling to process this information. How many centers does she have? Dad asks. 47, Elena replies. All focused on helping families separated by war, economic migration, political upheaval, and medical crises. She's been doing Joe's work on an international scale for decades, never knowing that his other family was building the same kind of programs here. I think about the federal funding we just received, the 10 new centers we're planning, the thousands of families we hope to help. Isabella has been doing this work on a scale we haven't even imagined yet. There's something else, Elena continues, something that's going to be hard to process. What now? I ask, though I'm not sure I can handle. Any more revelations? Isabella has been in contact with Carmen's family, Joe's first wife's relatives. Carmen died 15 years ago, but she has grandchildren who've been looking for Michael and David. They want to connect with their uncles, so there are even more family members we don't know about. Dad asks. Not just family members. There's a whole network of people who've been affected by Joe's abandonment, and they've all been working separately to heal the damage he caused. Isabella thinks it's time to bring everyone together. I stand up and start pacing, trying to wrap my mind around the scope of what Elena is telling us. You're saying that Joe's abandonment created a ripple effect that led to family healing programs on multiple continents? I'm saying that Joe's decision to run away from his responsibilities inadvertently created a worldwide network of people dedicated to making sure other families never experience that kind of separation. Michael and David have finished planting and are walking toward us, probably wondering why I'm pacing around the parking lot looking like my world just got turned upside down. When does Isabella want to meet? I ask Elena. Next week. She's flying from San Francisco to Portland with her daughter and 2 of her grandchildren. She wants to tour all the centers, meet all the family, and discuss creating a formal partnership between her international programs and ours, her daughter and grandchildren, who are also involved in the family healing work. It's become a multi-generational mission for them, just like it has for us. Michael and David reach the bench where Dad and I are sitting. Everything okay? David asks. You both look like you've had a shock. We have, I tell them. Elena, can you explain to Michael and David about Isabella? As Elena tells them about their mysterious benefactor aunt, I watch their faces go through the same progression of shock, wonder, and excitement that I'm feeling. By the time she finishes, both men are sitting on the ground, too stunned to remain. Standing. Our funding has been coming from our father's sister this whole time, Michael asks. Your aunt who's been looking for your father for 70 years, Elena confirms. Your aunt who's been building healing centers across Asia while you've been building them here. David starts laughing, not bitter laughter, but the kind of amazed laughter that comes when the universe reveals a pattern so beautiful and unlikely that it takes your breath away. Do you realize what this means? He asks all of us what Dad and I say together, it means that Joe's abandonment didn't just create healers, it created a global healing network. Every person he hurt went on to dedicate their lives to preventing other families from experiencing that same pain. Michael nods slowly. Isabella helping us. Joe creating the Family Bridge program. You bringing us all together. Carmen's grandchildren presumably doing something similar. It's like abandonment became a superpower instead of a trauma. It's like Joe's worst moment created the best possible outcome. I add. Understanding finally clicking into place, Alina's voice comes through the phone speaker. That's exactly what Isabella said when she called. She said that sometimes the most broken people create the most healing because they understand pain in ways that others can't. I think about the ring on my finger, about the family we've built from the broken pieces of Joe's mistakes, about the thousands of families we've helped heal from their own trauma. When Isabella comes next week, I say to everyone, I think we need to have more than just a family reunion. I think we need to plan the largest family healing conference the world has ever seen. What do you mean? Dad asks. I mean, we invite everyone. Isabella and her family, Carmen's grandchildren, representatives from all our centers, families we've helped, staff members, anyone and everyone who's been touched by Joe's legacy. We turn his abandonment story into a celebration of what's possible. When people choose healing over hurt, Michael's eyes light up. A conference that shows how trauma can be transformed into purpose. A gathering that proves families can heal from anything if they're willing to do the work, David adds. Elena's excitement comes through clearly over the phone. Joe would have never imagined this. Never in his wildest dreams could he have pictured his decision to run away leading to an international family healing movement. Maybe that's the point, I say, echoing something I said months ago but understanding it more deeply now. Maybe the point isn't to limit our healing to what one person can imagine. Maybe the point is to heal as big as the love we're trying to share. As we start planning what will undoubtedly be the most complicated family reunion in history, I realize that the story that began with Dad's cruel words at Uncle Marco's backyard has become something none of us could have predicted. It's become the story of how one man's cowardice inspired a global movement of courage, how abandonment became the foundation for connection, how the worst family story became the best family legacy, and we're still just getting started. 3 months later, I'm standing in the main ballroom of the Portland Convention Center, looking out at the most extraordinary family reunion in history. Over 400 people have gathered from around the world. Not just blood relatives, but the chosen family that Joe's abandonment inadvertently created. Isabella Castellano Chen sits at the front table, an elegant woman of 82 with silver hair and eyes that hold the same determined spark I see in the mirror every morning. Next to her are her daughter May and her grandchildren, all of whom have dedicated their lives to family healing work. Across from them sit Michael and David, no longer the abandoned twins, but the anchors of a global network they never knew they were part of. Can you believe this? Alina whispers to me as we watch Dad give the opening speech. Joe would have needed 3 lifetimes to imagine this many people coming together because of his story. But it's not just the numbers that amaze me, it's who came. Carmen's grandchildren flew in from Mexico City, where they've been running family reunification programs for undocumented workers. Representatives from Isabella's Asian centers brought photos and videos of thousands of families. They've helped heal from war trauma and forced separation. Staff members from all 12 of our domestic Castellano centers are here, along with dozens of families whose lives have been changed by our programs. And in the back of the room, in a section we reserved for them, sit Marcus and his grandmother, Sofia Martinez, with both her parents, the Thompson family from the military program, Mrs. Chen with her daughter who she successfully fought to bring home from foster care, and dozens of other families whose stories prove that healing is possible. Ladies and gentlemen, Dad says from the podium, his voice carrying clearly through the room. 18 months ago, I stood up at a family reunion and said words that nearly destroyed my relationship with my daughter. Today, I stand before you to talk about how those words led to something none of us could have imagined. I watch the faces in the crowd, people from 6 different countries, speaking 4 different languages, ranging in age from toddlers to great-grandparents, all connected by one man's decision to run away from his responsibilities 70 years ago. My father, Joe Castellano, was a coward, Dad continues, and the room falls completely silent. He abandoned his first family, kept secrets from his second family, and spent 60 years trying to fix his mistakes without having the courage to face the people he'd hurt. Isabella nods approvingly from the front table. She spent the last 3 days with us, sharing stories about the brother she lost and the international network she built while searching for him. But here's what I've learned, Dad says, his voice getting stronger. And sometimes, a family scattered by fear can be brought back together by love in ways that make them stronger than they ever were before. He gestures toward me, and I stand up, feeling the weight of Joe's ring on my finger and the responsibility of carrying his legacy forward. My daughter Sophia didn't just forgive me for the cruel words I spoke, Dad continues. She used those words as motivation to build something beautiful. She took her grandfather's abandonment story and turned it into a global family healing mission. The applause starts slowly and then builds until the entire ballroom is on their feet. But I'm not looking at the crowd. I'm looking at the display board behind the podium. That shows the scope of what we've accomplished together. The numbers are staggering. 47 centers across Asia, 15 centers in North America, pilot programs starting. In Europe and South America, over 50,000 families helped. More than 200,000 children who've received support during medical crises or family separation. But the real measure of our success isn't in the numbers. It's in faces like Marcus, who's sitting with his military family and grinning like he owns the world. It's in Sofia Martinez, who's holding both her parents' hands while they sit together peacefully for the first time in years. It's in Isabella's grandchildren gathering. He never got to know that his decision to leave his family would eventually bring together the largest international family healing network in history. But I think he would have been amazed to discover that his abandonment created not just pain, but purpose. Isabella stands up from her table and walks to the front of the room. At 82, she moves with the dignity of someone who spent 70 years turning grief into healing. "May I?" she asks, reaching for the microphone. I hand it to her, and she looks out at the crowd with the same determined expression I've seen in Joe's photos. "My brother Joe was 12 years old when our parents died," she says, her voice clear despite her age. "I was only 8. We were placed with relatives who didn't want us, separated from each other, and told that family was something that happened to other people." The room is completely silent now, everyone leaning forward to hear this piece of the story that even we didn't know. "Joe ran away when he was 16 because he was afraid of being responsible for me. He thought if he left, our relatives would take better care of me without having to worry about both of us." She pauses, looking directly at Michael and David. When he left his first family 20 years later, he was repeating the same pattern. Running away because he was afraid of failing the people he loved most. But here's what Joe never understood, Isabella continues, her voice getting stronger. "Love isn't about being perfect. Love is about showing up, even when you're afraid, even when you don't know what you're doing, even when you've made terrible mistakes." She gestures around the room. Every person in this ballroom is proof that love is stronger than abandonment. Every family we've helped heal, every child we've supported, every program we've built, they're all evidence that the human capacity for connection is more powerful than the human tendency to run away. The microphone gets passed around the room then, and family after family shares their stories. Carmen's grandson talks about helping undocumented families stay connected across borders. A representative from one of Isabella's centers in Japan describes their work with families separated by natural disasters. Staff members from our domestic programs share success stories that bring tears to everyone's eyes. But the moment that breaks me completely is when Marcus's grandmother takes the microphone. "I want to thank Joe Castellano," she says, her voice shaking with emotion. "Not because he was a perfect man, but because his imperfection led to the creation of programs that saved my grandson's life." She looks directly at me. "When Marcus was in the hospital and his parents couldn't be there, Sophia made sure he knew he was worth staying for. She made sure he never had to wonder if he mattered." That's Joe's real legacy. Not the abandonment, but the healing that came after. As the formal program ends and people start mingling, I find myself standing with Isabella near the display board, showing our global impact. "I have something for you," she says, reaching into her purse. She pulls out a small wooden box, worn smooth by decades of handling. "What is it?" "Letters," she says simply. "Every letter Joe wrote to me over the years, but never sent. He gave them to a mutual friend before he died, with instructions to pass them on to his family if we ever found each other." I take the box with trembling hands. "How many letters?" 63. One for every year we were separated. He never stopped thinking about family, Sophia. He never stopped hoping that somehow, someday, the people he'd hurt would find their way back to each other. It's addressed to the family I hope to leave behind. "Should I read it now?" I ask. Isabella nods. "I think everyone should hear it." I walk back to the microphone and ask for everyone's attention. The room falls quiet as I explain about the letters and hold up the final one. "This is the last thing Joe ever wrote," I tell the crowd. "A letter to all of us written just weeks before he died." I open the envelope and unfold the single sheet of paper inside. Joe's handwriting is weak but clear. "To my family, all of you, blood family and chosen family, The ones I knew and the ones I never got to meet. I spent 70 years running away from the people I loved because I was afraid of disappointing them. I thought if I stayed away, I could somehow protect them from my failures. What I understand now, too late to change but not too late to share, is that love isn't about being perfect. Love is about being present. It's about choosing each other, again and again, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. If you're reading this letter, it means my abandonment somehow led you all back to each other. It means that my worst decision became the foundation for your best choices. I can't undo the pain I caused. I can't give back the years we lost, but I can leave you with this. You are all proof that families aren't just about blood. They're about choice. They're about showing up. They're about turning your wounds into wisdom and your pain into purpose. Take care of each other. Stay connected. Keep healing families who need what you've learned about love. And remember that sometimes the most broken stories become the most beautiful legacies. With all my love and hope for your future, Joe. The silence in the room is profound. Then, slowly, people start standing up. Not applauding, just standing in honor of a man who spent his life running away, but whose legacy brought everyone together. I look around the ballroom at this extraordinary chosen family, Isabella and her multi-generational team of healers. Michael and David with their decades of clinic experience, Elena who carried Joe's secrets and enabled his redemption, Dad who learned to choose love over fear, Carmen's family who turned loss into service, and hundreds of other people whose lives had been touched by programs that grew from one man's abandoned children. Joe was right about one thing, I say into the microphone. The most broken stories do become the most beautiful legacies. Not because the breaking doesn't matter, but because what we choose to build from the broken pieces matters more. I take off Joe's ring and hold it up so everyone can see it. This ring has been passed down through generations of women who chose love over fear. Tonight, I'm not passing it to one person. Tonight, I'm asking all of us to carry forward what it represents. What's that? Someone calls from the crowd. The promise that no family has to be defined by their worst moments? The commitment that children will never have to wonder if they're worth staying for? The knowledge that abandonment can be healed, separation can be overcome, and love, messy, imperfect, show up anyway. Love is always stronger than fear. As people start to disperse, planning regional meetings and coordinating international programs and exchanging contact information for ongoing collaboration, I realize that this isn't really an ending. It's a beginning. Joe's story of abandonment has become our story of connection. His legacy of pain has become our legacy of healing. His scattered family has become a global network of people committed to making sure no other family experiences what we experienced, and maybe that's what redemption actually looks like. Not fixing the past, but creating a future so beautiful that it transforms the meaning of everything that came before it. The story that started with my dad's cruel words at a family reunion has become the story of how love multiplies when people choose healing over hurt, connection over separation, and hope over fear. Joe never got to see this room full of people whose lives have been changed by programs that grew from his abandonment, but his letter proves he believed it was possible. Sometimes the most broken people do create the most healing, and sometimes, if you're very lucky, your worst family story becomes the foundation for helping thousands of other families write better endings. That's what love looks like in the end. Not perfection, but transformation. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of people who refuse to let pain have the final word. Joe's abandonment scattered his family across continents and generations. But love brought us all back together, stronger and more connected than we ever could have been if he'd never left at all. Some stories, it turns out, are worth waiting 70 years to finish. And that's how the worst words my father ever spoke to me became the foundation for the most beautiful family story I could have never imagined. Sometimes our deepest pain really does become our greatest purpose. I'd love to know, where are you listening from today? Drop a comment and tell me your city or country. It amazes me how stories of family healing can connect people from all around the world. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button to help spread a little more kindness in the world. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We share stories that remind us love really can triumph over anything, even when it takes a lifetime to get it right. Speaking of stories that will restore your faith in family, click on the video appearing on your screen right now. Trust me, you're going to want to hear what happens next. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most broken stories become the most beautiful legacies.